السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا بكم في نيوكاسل مع وليد. معنا اليوم ضيفين مميزين. الضيف الأول كيث باترسون صاحب قضية الإخلال من المنافسة. طبعا ما في أحد راح يعرف أو يعطيكم أكثر خبر أو يعني كل المعلومات اللي نحتاج نعرفها في الوقت الحالي صفقة نيوكاسل أكثر من كيث باترسون. ومعنا أيضا صديق البرنامج ستيوارت بينمان. Lads and laces, welcome to Newcastle with وليد. Special show tonight with Keith Patterson. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا بكم في نيوكاسل مع وليد. معنا اليوم ضيفين مميزين. الضيف الأول كيث باترسون صاحب قضية الإخلال من المنافسة. طبعا ما في أحد راح يعرف أو يعطيكم أكثر خبر أو يعني كل المعلومات اللي نحتاج نعرفها في الوقت الحالي صفقة نيوكاسل أكثر من كيث باترسون. ومعنا أيضا صديق البرنامج ستيوارت بينمان. Lads and laces, welcome to Newcastle with وليد. Special show tonight with Keith Patterson in CSL and our friend Stewart Penman. Welcome, lads.
Hi, how are you doing?
Welcome. Thank you, وليد. شكرا.
It's an honor and always a pleasure. At the beginning, we will start with this report.
كيث باترسون مشجع نيوكاسل وخضرم لمع اسمه أثناء ظهور بداية التلاعب من قبل مسؤولي الدوري الإنجليزي في صفقة الاستحواذ العام الماضي وتعمدهم المماطلة فيها. قرر كيث مع بعض الأصدقاء القيام بشيء كبير يساعد على إتمام صفقة الاستحواذ بنجاح، وعمل على جمع الأخطاء القانونية التي قام بها البريمير ليج، وعين محامين مختصين في هذه القضايا من ماله الخاص. ورفعت القضية رسميا في أكتوبر 2020 وتم جمع العديد من الأدلة التي تدين الدوري الإنجليزي وتثبت المماطلة المتعمدة واختلاف المعاملة مع الأندية الست الكبرى في جميع النواحي. وبعد تطور الأحداث قرر مايك أشلي ومحامي نادي نيوكاسل يونايتد تبني القضية التي رفعها كيث باترسون ومجموعة NCSL 1892 في أبريل الماضي. وما زالت القضية جارية وما زال استمرار الدوري الإنجليزي في محاولة التأجيل والمماطلة مستمرة من قبل الدوري الإنجليزي. قام كيث أيضا وأصدقائه بفتح حساب NCSL 1892 في تويتر للتواصل مع الجماهير، ومؤخرا حساب NCSL 1892 KSA العربي للتواصل مع السعوديين بشكل خاص. كيث باترسون ضيفنا الليلة في نيوكاسل مع وليد وصديق البرنامج ستيوارت بنمان. لمتابعة جديد كيث باترسون وستيوارت بنمان تابعوا قناة شؤون نيوكاسلية مع الإعلامي ستيف ريث.
At the beginning, fans are very devastated in the moment. We would like to clarify for them the situation right now as much as possible, because we felt that we have been manipulated by Premier League and legal officials in UK to waste the important summer we were waiting for the whole last season. I received many questions from Saudi, Gulf, and Arab fans. I sum it up into this question. First question, gentlemen, why it seemed the Newcastle fans' reaction regarding arbitration adjournment more disappointing than their reaction when PIF fall out last summer?
To answer that, وليد, I think last year when PIF pulled out, there was huge disappointment. And for us over in England, we thought the dream was over. And, you know, the dream was getting PIF to own the majority share in Newcastle United. However, the reason there was disappointment recently was maybe because of a couple of reasons. When the club made an announcement about the delay of the arbitration, they did it in a joint statement. The statement came from Newcastle United and the Premier League as a joint message. And that was the first time in this, this journey, I think is the best word to use, that Newcastle seemed to be on a same page as the Premier League. And there was some skepticism amongst fans, and it didn't seem to involve the buyers. And there was some disappointment from that side that whilst they were waiting and were supporting Newcastle supporters through a protest period in London, that was quickly followed by a huge delay. And the delay of the arbitration didn't say it's getting delayed till the 17th of November or the 4th of January or the 3rd of February. It was a very glib statement whereby it said it's going to be delayed till early 22. And that could be whenever. And the people close to the deal that showed disappointment, and you've heard it yourself, Al-Waleed, Steve Wraith was one, I was one. The reason there was disappointment was because we believe that PIF have had their patience tested with this deal already, and we believe that the buying consortium all want the deal to take place sooner rather than later. And when we were originally led to believe that the arbitration was going to take place in July 2021, and then we were told, well, it's going to early 22, we automatically felt this is a stretch of time that the buying consortium wouldn't tolerate. So that was where there was huge disappointment. Last year, when PIF pulled out, there was quickly a body of people that came together to challenge what the EPL were doing and to challenge the whole operation, which we thought was anti-competitive and was typically procrastinating the takeover of Newcastle. So there was a movement came together where a lot of people joined forces and said, let's fight it. And we were given encouragement that if we could reverse that decision, we would get PIF back to the table. So that's why there wasn't huge down then, because we had a belief that we could get them back to the table. But having gotten them back and having got support from people like Amanda Staveley and Mehrdad Ghodoosi, we were confident that if we heard the arbitration in July, we could get a deal. We could get this takeover done. And you've got to remember, probably in the history of football, I don't think there's ever been a situation whereby a football club on a proposed takeover has done a poll and tested their fan base and found out that there is between 97 and 99% of the fans behind a PIF takeover. It's the biggest endorsement from a fan base ever that they want this takeover and they want to partner people from Saudi Arabia in our future. And for this to be delayed for reasons we know aren't particularly clean, it annoys us. And that's why the further delay without an actual date was disappointing. And it was also disappointing that the club and the Premier League did a joint statement which none of the fans knew anything about its origin.
Stewart, if you can elaborate on this.
Well, the first thing I want to say is happy birthday for yesterday, Mr. Al-Waleed. I hope you had a great day.
Yeah, happy birthday.
And secondly, I put this top on, where is it here? Especially for Mr. Keith Patterson. It's a Lacoste one with a zebra on. So I wore that especially for tonight.
That's very kind.
And it's not for me to counteract, or I mean, Keith's immersed in this and he's emotionally invested, financially invested, mentally invested, you know, and people talk about in the know accounts, and if there's anyone in the know, it's Keith. So what he says, people need to listen to and respect. And I had a chat with Keith earlier today, and his heart is crying out for a PIF takeover. He told me that he started the consortium simply because he wanted the Saudi, no other consortium, no other takeover. It's the Saudi-led, PIF-led takeover he's after. Now, as people know, I'm more of a glass half full person. I tend to be, and I want to be, and so I say I'm not privy to information that other people are, but I have enough information, and as you know, وليد, I live in the region. I deal with Saudi people on a daily basis, and I do business with them regularly, and I understand how the ethos of the mentality of not just Saudi Arabia, but of the GCC. And what if we go back, if we wind the clock back maybe even 1 month, we had Amanda's call arms on certain, that's Amanda Staveley, on certain news channels saying, I'm a good northern lass, I'll never give in, I'll keep fighting to the end. And no reason to doubt her. She's passionate, she's put 4 years of her life into trying to get this takeover, any takeover of Newcastle United. And you've got to give it credit. Then you consider dealing with Saudi people, and we know that the geopolitics are at play here. And I think something I said when I was on Loaded Mag the other night, what people have to understand is the PIF wealth fund or investment fund, it's like $1.4 trillion. The amount that's set aside for Newcastle is pittance, and yes, they officially walked away last year because they're sick of being put away. But we all know that when that plankton on TalkSport, that's Simon Jordan, the plankton, when he was goading Amanda on this at the tail of the state, eventually she wrote and said, yes, there is still interest. Now, that doesn't mean at the top of the list, when we all know about Vision 2030, وليد, and the whole idea is to make Saudi Arabia sustainable rather than oil dependent, and it's going the right way. This is one part of it. This is a tiny part of it, and if you take into consideration that 300 million, as much as it's a huge sum of money for us, it's a huge sum of money to buy a football club of Newcastle currently, and then the investment that goes with it. But again, we get emotional. The key word is investment. And when you invest in something, you invest in it to make money. And it's as simple as that. And the potential for Newcastle is, and that's what's attracted not just PIF, but the Reuben brothers. And this is what's kept Amanda and me pushing them from the very start. Now, when it come out that once again the Premier League had managed to delay, we all know why would they keep pushing for delays on both fronts, not just the CAT case, but the arbitration. They've got something to hide, they don't feel confident, and they're hoping that if they keep delaying enough, the problem goes away, like they're burying their head in the sand, if you pardon the pun. And I'm just hopeful that there's enough determination on the buyer side to say, right, we want this. And I think Amanda and Mia have both shown that as much as they can legally, that they're very much on board for the takeover. Jamie Rubin's done his bit as well on behalf of that part of the consortium. But PIF, they've got pride. We know there's regional pride, and I mentioned the word geopolitics before. But they've withdrawn. Now, if they have a list of prospective, let's make a big list. They might have 500 different companies or different potential things they could invest their money in. They're not sitting around every time they have a board meeting saying, what's happening with Newcastle? It's been pushed to the side. This is my perspective, my understanding, my taking of it. And I could be 1,000 miles wrong here. It's there, it's not there. Now, I can only go on what's being released. Mike Ashley's confident that he has a buyer. He believes a deal's been agreed. And I can understand the fear, the trepidation, the worry, the stress, the angst, everything like this, that if the longer it goes on, the less interested people will be, or interested people will be. That's common sense, and we know they're kicking it down the can down the road for that reason. But what happens if the cat comes out? Now, something I did mention the other day, we have to be careful of what this does. Yes, we want to expose the corruptness. But again, if the Premier League is then exposed as being fully corrupt, especially at the top end, would that be an attractive proposition for PIF to invest the money in? You know, so it's delicate, but this is why I believe Mike Ashley's employed the best lawyers in the land. You know, for the arbitration and for the cat case. Now, if and when, and I want to stay positive, if and when it gets to a situation where, okay, we'll approve your takeover, whatever deal is struck to have behind the scenes for that to happen, then it's up to the buyer to go back to the potential sellers and say, look guys, we agreed a deal last year, we agreed a deal, whatever. Do you want it? Then I would imagine the same people would sit down PIF board and then look at this proposition and say, is this worth investing in? Because it's just an investment to them. The potential.
I don't disagree with anything you've said. I don't disagree with any of that.
But that's just the way I see it, Keith. So, I mean, for people to say, you know, there's always rights and wrongs and everything. For anyone to say PIF have walked away or PIF 100% at the table, they can't say that because they haven't said that. And when I started this little speech about doing business with Saudi Arabian people, the one thing is their principles and the honesty. And if they're not interested, they would tell you they're not interested. And if they are interested, they'd say they are interested. And as from all we've understood, from what, like as I said earlier, what Amanda could tell us, PIF are still interested. That doesn't mean they're buying it. That doesn't mean they'll go ahead. And obviously, the longer it goes on, the percentage will drop. And this is the game the PL want to play. So hopefully, the bigger picture plays out, and people look at this and say, right, we understand that a certain Gary Hoffman was brought in. That's when the timeline that Keith's referred to many times, that's when things changed dramatically. And we know that it come from being sports, and there's rights and wrongs on both sides. I don't want to get into, especially living here, I don't want to get into a geopolitical argument. But I do know that in this region, Saudi Arabia is seen as the biggest boys in the playground. Now, would Pride allow them just to say, okay, we'll back off now, we're not going to invest in Newcastle United, simply because we know that we've bent down to a Qatar-led BN? Or would they just say, you know, I'm just sick of this, and they'll go and buy something bigger than Newcastle? Now, that's a worry, you know, and because it is about making money. And again, I talked about, did they buy a Man United? I don't think if they don't buy Newcastle, I don't think they can buy another club in the Premier League. You know, for exactly the same reasons the Premier League are trying to give. But the example I used on Friday was let's say they'll go and buy Man United for $4 billion. Where's the profit in that? They'd have to invest quite a lot to make them where they believe they should be. They'd have to probably invest at least $500 million minimum to even get on a par or close to Manchester City and the Chelsea's now. And so you're in a position where even if they do manage to do that and they can win a European Cup, whatever, there isn't as much glory or satisfaction or profit. That's the key, or profit in that investment. Because to take them from $4 billion, invest, let's say, $750 million, and they want to make a profit, so they're going to sell it for $5 billion. Who's going to buy Manchester United for $5 billion? How many people have the capability? How many companies have the capability to do that? Where Newcastle at $300 million, throw in, I don't know, say $700 million over the next 3 years on transfers, etc. You've got a team that's more than capable of competing for the Champions League. Follow the Manchester City, and it moves from there.
I think your argument, Stewart, are based on when the Newcastle have a club that they can sell, it's going to be attractive, and the Saudis, you know, PIF will buy it. My question back to you then, simple. What do you think is going to give Newcastle the ability to be able to sell to PIF?
What do I think? Well, I touched on it before, Keith. If the cat case, I know it's been highlighted more often, quite often. The cat case would expose the Premier League, and I would like to think, you know, if we're getting a wish list, I'd like to think that the the Premier League would fold because they didn't want the bad exposure. But again, I've counteracted that as, would anyone want to invest in something that was bad? I think if the judicial system is correct, justice is the right word, you know, arbitration. Now, how can they pass something like what happened to Burnley and something that's happened to Crystal Palace? And, you know, one has put someone straight to debt and the other ones, you don't even know who owns them. But you can't have someone who is willing to throw money at you in the Premier League hide behind that they're doing their best for Newcastle fans and protecting the club. They're not protecting the club at all. So to answer your question, Keith, I would like the government to intervene.
That's what's not happening.
Yeah, that's what hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But again, being the king of wishful thinking, you know, the Go West song and everything, but wouldn't you like to, in a long-term thing, if the takeover doesn't happen, I would love the Premier League to be exposed and everything come out and get jail for the Hoffmans and the Masters and everything else. But I'd also like for Saudi Arabia to say to the government, why? You could have interfered or inferred here and you haven't. They haven't done this yet, despite certain journalists' remarks claiming they have. But to actually say to them, you want our billions for different things, but we're not good enough doing a football club in your country. It has to at some stage tarnish the relationship between the two countries. You know,
the English government's massively let Saudi Arabia down.
If they allow this to continue further, yeah.
Well, they have, and they've left English football down, and they've left the people of Newcastle down. And they talk about levelling up policy where they're going to invest in the north of England, which had less investment than the south, but it's never happened. And
this was going to be done for them. It would have been done for them.
When this government came to power, it lent on all the people in the north to change their votes from red to blue so that they could become Conservative voters and get them into power. But they haven't delivered. If they went for an election tomorrow, there's no Newcastle fans can say I'll vote for government because they've done what we ask of them. They've hopelessly let us down. You're talking about a Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who's called this a cartel. Now, in any country in Europe, if you've got a cartel in operation, you have a duty of care to the people in your country to crush the cartel. By law, the government have got to remove a cartel from existing. Yeah. Now he's turned
the Monopolies Commission, didn't they, before that?
Yeah, but he's turned around and said the European Super League, when it was formed, he said he would get up and he would make new laws, new rules to stop it from happening. Okay, so we say that if you run this case, if you run the competition action, you will find evidence that that same six cartel have stopped the takeover of Newcastle United from the PIF consortium. What's being done about it? What have the government done? What has Boris Johnson done to stop this cartel operating in England? English football has two groups. It has 6 teams and it has 14 teams. And they all vote. The Premier League is just those 20 teams. But they are letting a cartel, they are letting the Big Six and the Premier League and beIN Sports decide that this takeover with Newcastle United will not take place. They prevent it from going to court. They delay it all the time. One journalist, one lawyer said that the CAT case wouldn't impact the takeover. I took that comment to a competition lawyer and to a competition QC, one of the biggest QCs in the country. And they said, obviously, they don't know what they're talking about, because the only way that a cartel will ever be stopped in existence is through a court. That's the only way it'll happen. And in October last year, I took an action to the Premier League, and I was immediately told in a 9-page letter that my action would never be put ahead of the club's case. The club would always come first, and I would have to keep behind it. I worked with the club to try and get a competition action into court. Bear in mind, I ran it last October. The earliest the club took it, they could have took it earlier, but they decided to delay as well. And eventually, they took the case into court in April this year. You know yourself now, it's been delayed, and the next court case is September. And in September is not to run the competition action, it's to see whether they're allowed to hear it. And that's the Premier League.
Keith, can I ask you a question then? Let me ask you a question back. Because what do you think? I know that you speak to lots of people and you've paid a lot of money for that privilege, you know what I mean? More money than you wanted to pay for sure. but you're involved in it whether you want to be or not. What do you think is the best way, the quickest way to get this takeover? Because I think that's the question for most fans. They want to know,
it's a good question.
Can it get done, and what's the quickest way to get it done?
Right. When I formed an action against the Premier League, they would talk to me, and I would talk to my lawyers and my QCs, and I would call the shots because I was paying for it. But the minute the club took it on, right, the financial risk for me improved, because now any costs of running that are with the club. You've got to remember, it's Newcastle United that's fighting the Premier League. It's not the consortium. It's not PIF. It's not PCP. And it's not the Rubens. But it's also not the fans. So it's just the club. They're the only people who can call the shots at the lawyers. But if I wanted to make this action, if somebody said to me, carte blanche, you can do what you want, but we have to see a PIF take over Newcastle and want to see it as quick as we can. I spoke to a competition QC last week, a guy called Robert O'Donoghue from Brickcourt Chambers, and I would say he's probably, I believe, the best competition QC in the country. And he said, if your case had run last October, you would have new owners now. I go, say, okay then, Robert. Going on from there, what would we need to do now? He said, it's quite easy. You'll get a case hearing in September, which will allow you to see whether the Premier League can throw it out or not. It's his opinion that will fail. Okay. What I would like.
Well, he thinks the cut case, the appeal to get. So he thinks it'll go ahead.
He thinks they'll fail to get thrown out. His fear is that they debate and delay that decision and say, well, I'll tell you what, we want to appeal that decision. And we just want to keep pushing it back and pushing it back. Why do they want to push it back? Because there's evidence in existence and evidence that I've seen that will bring them down. Now, what do I want to see? I want to see the buyer and the seller and the fans get together and take on the Premier League. Because if the opposition or if the enemy is the top 6 clubs, because they're petrified of what Newcastle would look like under PIF ownership, and there is the Premier League who are being swayed by them 6 clubs. I'm also told that Henry Winter said that the other 13 teams in the bottom 14 are against the deal as well, because taking Newcastle out and giving them investment would mean that there is a place less likely to get relegated.
Higher percentage of them getting relegated. That's right.
So they don't want it as well. And he said there's some of them are vehemently against a PIF takeover Newcastle. So what do I want to see? I want to see the CAT action run by the club, joined by the people who lost the deposits. So the consortium had substantial deposits of millions of pounds. So they've got an action straight away to reclaim those monies because of the Premier League's illegal activity. So if they join the action and then resurrect the fans action, let's get a class action.
What's the time scale on that, Keith? Let's just say you got your wish list.
If I got my wish list, the buyers could join that action in September, and the fans could bring an action to do it at the same time, but all could come at once. So all of a sudden, the Premier League will walk around thinking, we'll just keep kicking this into the long grass. And there's nothing so certain. When you've got an organisation as credible and as brilliant as PIF, it won't wait forever. And neither will people like PCP and the Rubens. They won't wait forever. These people do business and do deals. They've picked Newcastle out. We feel honoured that they've done this. We think this is the first chance. This is the first chance that we might compete, that we might not be outbid for managers, players, advertising contracts, media deals, shirt sponsors. It's the first time Newcastle might be able to sit at the top table. So we've waited. You know, we've never won anything. Newcastle haven't
not just the team, Keith, the region.
Newcastle have not won a domestic one in 1955. 1955, last time we won a domestic trophy, and 1969 since we won a European trophy.
Gentlemen, sorry, I didn't want you to interrupt you. I apologize, but I promised.
Like we're sitting in the ball, Keith.
I promise the fans to go all over the question, and you will have the free speech. Will, in your opinion, will the arbitration hearing take place at the beginning of 2022, or there is a possibility to postpone again? Okay.
The true answer to that, Al-Waleed, is nobody knows, because the club told me that they thought that the arbitration would run in July 2021, and now the club have signed a joint statement to say it's going to run in early 22. I said at the start of this show that when is early 22? Is it the 1st of January or is it the 5th of May? Because there's one thing certain: if the Premier League are involved and this organisation is stopping our takeover, it's absolutely nailed on that these people will be late. They are the kings of procrastination, as are their lawyers. They've got reputations for doing this. And I'm sick of pretending that we get a fair deal or going along with what's happening, because what's happening in English football at the moment stinks. It's awful. And Stewart said earlier, he said, you know, is it attractive if there is some foul play going on? Stewart, there's foul play times 1,000 going on. And
I believe it.
There's three ways.
Well, Keith, just to explain what I was saying was that this foul play goes on in lots of big businesses, underhand tactics, etc., etc. But what I'm talking about is a full cat case. Let's just say the Premier League had the gumption, the naivety to say, okay, let's expose what you've got. You know fine well that it would finish them. So the point I was saying about exposing them is, why would then PIF want, I'm only playing devil's advocate here, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying, why would then PIF want to invest as much money as heavily into a brand that's tarnished? At the moment, the brand's still intact.
You can't change that. You can't change it. Like I'll say something to you differently, Stewart. What has taken place that will win our case has already happened. So you can't erase that. You can't tip that out. So let's talk about it. To run a cartel, okay, you've got to be involved in some action whereby some people in a market are trying to take an unfair advantage on others in a market. Now, let's talk about the ESL. How did that come about? Six companies are going to get more money, don't have to compete, can't get relegated, and they're going to get the lion's share more money than the other 14. Who decided those big six? Who decided which six were going to get it? And why Newcastle weren't involved, or why Leicester or West Ham wasn't involved? So let's not talk about what's attractive and what's not. The dirt is there. It's a fact of life that what's happened in football in England's already taken place. The day you woke up one morning and said the ESL is going to take place, then and people talk about collusion, because collusion is illegal in England.
How can there not be collusion? How did they talk to each other then?
How did they
start the ESL?
Choose themselves without colluding? How did the 6 decide it wasn't Man City? And how did they say, well, look, we'll not have Everton. We'll cut Liverpool in half. And we'll take Liverpool, but we won't take the blue side of Merseyside. We'll leave Everton out. How did that happen without collusion? Please give me strength. There's 3 things will hang anybody in a competition action. There's 3 things would deliver this takeover. And that's proven that a body abuses a dominant position. I'm just going to give you some facts here. And it's good for the readers and the listeners, because there's a lot of people back home have dialed into you, Al-Waleed. You need to prove one of 3 things. You don't have to prove all of them, just one. Can you prove that there's an abuse of a dominant position? Well, straight away, for me, the Premier League have 20 clubs. That is the Premier League. So they are dominant because they run the 20 clubs. And if they run those clubs to let 6 benefit over and above one other and stop investment in one other, that's abusing that dominant position. Because they're in the position to say, no, you can't do that. I've got to let every club have true, honest investment. But the Premier League haven't done that. So I think they've abused their dominant position. That's my personal opinion. Secondly, you can prove something called collective lobbying. Collective lobbying is where it's proven that somebody is lobbying competitors of Newcastle United. Now, we've got that in a letter which is called the Behind letter. And that letter is from the CEO of Behind Sports, And he writes to them and says, I want you to challenge the takeover of Newcastle United from the people of Saudi Arabia. That's a published letter. Now, my QC said to me, the only way that letter wouldn't carry its clout is if it hadn't been sent. Since then, I've subsequently worked with a member of the press in the UK to obtain a written copy from a legal person within that company where he states that the letter has gone out. He confirms it's gone out, and he says, what's wrong with the letter? What is wrong? The word he uses, what's wrong with us lobbying football clubs to not take a takeover of Newcastle? What's the difference between that and Newcastle, you lot lobbying for it? There's no difference. Our competition QC said, lobbying for a club to get a takeover yourselves is perfectly legal, but lobbying competitors to stop a competitor getting investment is highly illegal. That's what the competition QC said. The third kind of behavior, which will come back to anti-competitive behavior and bring them down, is collusion. And the day that the ESL was announced in Europe, the European Super League, the day that was announced was the day that it would be unthinkable, was what a competition QC said to me. Unthinkable that there hasn't been collusion in English football. So you've got those three things, and we only need to prove one of them. We've seen it.
It's charging all three, aren't they?
The reason I'm negative, or the reason I'm a bit down at the minute, is because we can't get the thing into court. And so,
yeah, so that's the problem. That's what's causing the.
I'm just a football fan, وليد. I'm a football fan. I live in Durham. I'm from Newcastle, and Newcastle's my club, and I love the place. And I only want to see my club compete. If I looked at every single offer on the table, I called the company Newcastle Consortium Supporters Limited, which means the only thing I support is this consortium. This is the PCP, Rubens, PIF consortium. And that's the only one I want. I don't want any of them. Yeah, Henry Morris, Keith, and all the rest.
The fantastic thing is, Keith, that you've done this, and I know this how far you're in now. I know this. You didn't mean or intend ever to get that far in or this far involved. You like you say, a normal fan like me, who's in a fortunate position where you can say, okay, I've got a bit behind this, I can challenge it, and it's just snowballed. But like for me, I've heard of lawyers, I've heard of solicitors, and I've had to meet a few on certain occasions. But the only QC I knew was the sherry that me great auntie used to drink, you know. But now half the fan base are legal experts, you know. And you start thinking, well, if these top, and we know the Queen's Counsel, the top people, they want to get it into court, and it's something I mentioned in sales. It's fear of loss of hope to gain. There's two sides here for this sale. The takeover, the buyers are all hoping to gain. The sellers are hoping to gain. The Premier League is fear of loss, and they will. And I don't think it's that. I know, again, this is purely just my opinion. I don't think they're that too bothered about an actual Saudi PIF investment, because it'll generate more fans, which in turn will bring more money into their brand. I think it's because of the words you were using before, the collusion, the corruptness, and what they've done. There's too many people got things over them. You know, like whether it's be blackmail, well, if you let this happen, we're going to say this, and if you let this happen, we're going to say this. And this is why the phrase that you use is getting kicked up the long grass, is because they don't know which way to turn. So they're hoping the longer they delay it, the problem goes away. You know, it's like if you've been naughty as a kid, you know, and wait till your dad gets home. You hope your dad's working overtime and you're asleep.
But they're winning.
You'll come home eventually.
They're winning, Stewart.
So far. Because I'll tell you what, no, Keith, I'm going to say this, because I'll tell you what they're not winning. They won't be winning when Amanda makes a statement or when PIF tell us, sorry, we're not interested. Because, again, it's a really small thing, this takeover for them. It's a really, really small investment for them. And what they're waiting for, and again, it's just my opinion, is for Mike Ashley to come back and say, here's the offer. Are we going ahead with this or not? We'll look at it. Yeah, this is viable. This is going to give us profit. This is going to look good for 2030 vision. But you're right, the longer it goes, the closer 2030 gets. So again, this is just my opinion.
Well, I'm talking from people that I've spoken to close to it, and the disappointment, the frustration is that this has gone on from the start of 2020. We now in the middle, but we've passed the middle stage. We're in month 8 of 2021, and they're now saying next action is a 2021 September. We're going to see whether your competition action runs. Why is the government in Britain not turning around and say, I'll tell you what it is, not only is it going to run, but we're going to oversee it? Because if there's a cartel operating in our country, we're going to kick it out. Well, that's not going to happen because they haven't got the balls to do it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to materialize. So the next thing that's going to happen is it's going to run an arbitration sometime 22. And you say to me, oh, well, this is good. You should be optimistic. I'm a realist. And for me, when I run the action in October, I banged every day from October to April to get the action into court. I thought the day I got the competition action to court, وليد, that was game over for me. I thought I'd done my job. I'm a football fan, and I haven't got the kind of wealth that Mike Ashley or the Rubens or PIF have. I'm just I'm an ordinary bloke that's done okay for himself, but not. They're in a completely
different leagues.
So what I'm saying to you is the day I got my action into court, I thought, bingo, we've got it. Because what happened now is I'd spent years working against cartels and working with QCs and spending time in London European Court of Justice going through competition actions. So when some lawyer comes online on Twitter and says, oh, it won't impact it, and he's got no competition experience whatsoever, I think, well, you would say that because you don't understand what happens. But if you run a competition action and the word disclosure comes out, they're going to see every single letter that was sent from Tottenham Hotspur, from Liverpool, from Man United into the EPL. They're going to see the letter sent from beIN Sports to the EPL and what happened when it was sent back. And trust me, when beIN sent a letter out and lobbied everyone to stop this takeover, the judge will want to know, what did you do, Tottenham Hotspur, the day you got it? What did you do, Liverpool? Did you go to your lawyers and say this is collective lobbying, it's illegal, they're trying to stop competition, they're trying to stop investment? That's what's got to happen. But if you but Stuart, if you don't get into court, what happens
it's getting into court.
If you don't get into court, PIF go and buy Real Madrid or Barcelona or Inter Milan, the Reuben brothers go and buy more property and invest again, like they're extremely successful, one of the most successful companies under COVID. And Amanda and Mehrdad go and do another project with PCP. Why I'm being a realist, Stewart, is because we are no closer forward today getting this action to court than what we were in April this year, or no closer than what we were last October.
But Keith, that's not your fault. That's not the buyer's fault. That's not the seller's fault. We know whose fault it is. But the question I asked was, let's just say that the CAT case in September, okay, you can proceed. And there's no right of appeal because they've already appealed, delayed. Do you know, maybe you don't know, but do you know what the timescale would be? Is it possible that the courts will rule, right, okay, the CAT case goes ahead, and can they say it'll go ahead next month, as in October, the month after, November? Is there a time scale? Is there a queue? This is the things that I don't know, and I'm sure many other fans don't know.
If the CAT case decides that this will run, which we think it will, in September, and they fail to get any appeal or delay of time, then the procedure quickens up, and the CAT take control of the dates. And they look in the court paper and say, right, we will listen for that date. And you might, if it runs from September and they say go ahead, you might get a date this year.
Yeah, because there's two different stories, isn't there? Yeah, when you mentioned about the Twitter lawyers and everything, people say there's a queue, it can take 2 or 3 years. There's other people saying it can be expedited and it's in public interest. How can it not be in public interest when your own Prime Minister's calling it a cartel? Well, so it's definitely in public interest.
He's doing nothing about it. Boris Johnson is doing, he's doing nothing about this cartel. And what's happening is, if you said to me, who's done the best this year? Your buyers, your sellers, Newcastle fans, Newcastle as a region, or the EPL and all their backers, I'd say they're winning. They've got to be winning because
Yeah.
they're no closer forward to getting caught with the trousers down. They just, at the minute, they're just getting away with murder. And what
No,
they
but
do
Keith,
is,
it's like I said, you know it's coming though, or they fear it's coming, and they're trying to delay it.
Yeah, but will we have these buys in place by the time it does come? For me, Waleed, I think that it's taken too long. And I know from people I talk to that there's people, you know, in the buying side are well frustrated. It's you know, like we all believe that we're going to get arbitration in July, and then the cap would follow soon after. And now arbitration next year, cat, well, we'll let you see in September whether you're allowed to run it. And at the minute, the Premier League are winning the delay stakes. And you said something earlier, which is very valid, Stewart. If it fails, the problem doesn't go away. But if it fails, I'll tell you something online today. If it fails, I won't be watching football no more because it stinks. You know, what do I go and watch my team play when some of the clubs decide who can buy us? Yeah, I want PIF to buy us. I want, you know, 97 to 99% of Newcastle fans want PIF to buy us. So why can't not just a case of why can it not do that? Why can we not have a court case to hear out what they've been up to? That's my frustration. I mean, I don't run the courts, but my QC said to me, if your action had run in October, you'd have new buyers now. So you asked earlier, what would you do if you had a choice? I'd get the buyers, I'd get the sellers together as one and say, we're taking this on together jointly. I'd put statements out, and then I'd get a fans action done by fans that's affected. And there's it's an easy thing to do to pick 6 Newcastle fans to run a class action and show a real loss by what the Premier League's done. So that's a very easy thing to do. Robert O'Donoghue.
What's the timeline with that, though, Keith?
It would all be come at the same case. You would bolt on your case.
Attach onto it, right?
You would attach it to the clubs. Anybody who has an action or has a loss can attach to a competition claim. The problem is there's lawyers out there that don't want to see it happen. There's people that don't want this takeover. And what they'll do is say, this will happen. And they'll tell you all the reasons why. There's reporters don't want to see it happen as well. And there's people against it. But for me, I just wish that the club, the buyers and sellers and the fans could get together and turn the screw and make it go to court. Because
are they allowed to do that with these 2 cases running though? Sorry, asking all these questions. I can just bring you up and do it.
Of course they can. If the club launch a cat action, which they have, all the buying side need to do is attach themselves to that action. Very, very normal thing to do. Very simple, straightforward. You got to remember that our action, right, which O'Donoghue said would win, he was very confident in our case. I'm sure the club's case is better. That action is open for the buyers or the sellers. We've got ready-made.
I want to give you a perfect example here of what I first said. This is Waleed's show, right? And he's sat there, dying to speak, trying to speak, and he's that courteous and that polite. He didn't want to interrupt, and he's like, and this is the whole thing with like I'm saying about the custom out here is different to back home. The politeness, the manners. So politely, PIF withdrew, and I honestly believe now I could be totally wrong. If it happens in September, they get the cat case and it gets expedited. Let's say this year, someone goes back and says, right, we've got what you were interested in. Look, the crowds are back in there. It's still an attractive proposition. Would you do it? I can't answer on behalf of PIF whether they're still there or not. But I would honestly think if they weren't still interested, again, a big list. If you look, this invested $500 million into buying 10% of, was it Mercedes Racing or something like that? We are a small percentage. Are you still interested in picking us up? Yeah, it was a potential good there. So yeah, we will, or no, we won't. But I believe if they weren't, then they'll say they're not. And then I believe
you've covered that twice well, and I think that's fact. But I think it's for the future. It's because my question goes back to when's it going to happen? Like until you get a court action, you're not going to get the Premier League to break. So until you get a court case hearing, until you get in a court case, we know close to that court case.
That's why of course. So
that's
why I asked earlier, what was the quickest way to get a court case?
Yeah, but all this talk about will PF buy when it gets a court case, is for some time in the future. For me, it's how does Newcastle United get this case heard in the British court? That's what I'm saying. Waleed, I really apologise.
No, it's okay. Actually, I have many questions, as I said, but
Okay.
you cover it. You cover it as well. So that's why it's like I want you to continue. I will I will say the question. I understand Keith frustration because in your opinion, what you said, it's everything is ready for the cat case to be played. Just you want to start
evidence.
You want to start the court, and this is
Bring it on.
frustrated part. Play it on, exactly.
The frustration.
If the EPL have got a good case, well, let's hear it. Let's take a boxing match, put your man in the ring, and let's see who wins.
Okay, now we are combined with the two with the cat case and the arbitration. I will sum it up. The part, the question, some of the question you are answered already.
Okay.
Part of it, and I will ask, and you will go on. The cat case, as expected, to continue. This is the most question I received. Expected to continue September 29, but a long appeal by Premier League is also expected. As sentences have been circulated, the PIF will not wait this long. Is there signs that make are there signs that make the fans optimistic about NFC takeover? And the second part, what is the expected reason behind this? Is also important. I receive this a lot. What's the reason of the quietness, or let's say the calmness of the consortium at the moment, right after the adjournment of the arbitration and CAT procrastination?
Okay. I think I understand. I understand the second part of the question straight away. I can answer that. I think the reason there's quietness from the consortium buyers is because when we went to protest, we protested the government. We went to government to try and protest to make something happen, and we made that public. And what happened is that brought out some of the consortium supporters. So that some of the consortium buyers came out and backed what we were doing and said, great what you're doing, keep going, let's have this deal. And they said, we're looking forward to taking over the club.
Yeah.
What followed that was a joint statement from the club with the Premier League that didn't involve the buyer. It was just a club and Premier League statement. When that came out, the buyers weren't aware that that was going to come out. Whereas up till then, the buyers were always involved and the buyers were always consulted. But when the statement came out that we're jointly going to delay this until early 22, the buyers got a shock. The buyers were moved and thought, good heavens, that's a long time. And they were struggling. You know, the buyers are having to keep everything together and keep it positive. So that's why there's a frustration from the buyers and from the fans. But I think the lull is quite explanatory because it's not the buyers who are doing the deals. It's just the club. Only the club are working with the legal team now. The fans are out because I'm not paying the legal bills. The buyers are out because they're not allowed to be involved. Both the buyers and
Keith, that's the point I was going to say before. When you said the buyers aren't allowed to be involved, and if they did get involved, that would be collusion, would it not? If they, or would it not? I mean, I'm not the lawyer.
I think maybe it's what you. I think what you're doing is eloquently explaining.
I'm trying to understand.
I think what you're saying is, I think what you're saying is the buyers will get involved when they can. I think that's your point. Yes, but my point before then. How is Newcastle United, who are desperately keen to sell this club, ever going to get it into a courtroom and stop the EPL procrastinating to
I
get
agree.
a club?
The question I was asking.
But I think we need to pass. We need to park that if we had a club to sell, people might buy it. My fear is that we're never going to have a club to sell because we're never going to be allowed to get a decision. Because
Keith, honestly, I understand that, mate. I understand that. But the question I was asking was, when you said what you need or what you'd love to happen is the buyers and the sellers to get together, but you've just said legally they're not allowed to do that because would that not be deemed as collusion as well? I'm asking because I don't know.
It's not collusion because if the buyers came forward and said we've lost millions of pounds in deposits for this being put back, then the buyers can attach themselves to a competition action, and then they're both working for the same purpose. But right now, the vibes I'm getting is that the club struggle with the Premier League and are frustrated with the Premier League's delays. And while they struggle and government don't get involved, I just don't see the club beating the Premier League to get this into a courtroom
on the road.
in time. No, I just don't. I think it's the same talk, the same frustration. These are people who are desperate to sell a football club and are very keen to sell to this consortium, but they're not getting it into a courtroom. It's, you know, the judicial system isn't letting them get justice.
Yeah, I think the frustration is clear to see on everyone. But for me, what confuses us, and it's been said many a time, a lot of it by yourself as well, Keith, you've got willing buyers, willing sellers, and willing fans. What's stopping it? Now, if there is something stopping it, let the Premier League at least have a bit of transparency and say, this is the reason why we're not letting it go ahead. But they can't, because the reasons, as far as it appears, are illegal.
The Premier League will keep on delaying this as long as they can get away with it.
Oh, absolutely.
Al-Waleed,
Yeah.
come on.
Regarding the Premier League.
Oh, he's there. Hello, Al-Waleed. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you, really. Thank you, lads. It's a great answer for a lot of questions. I still have two more important questions. Number 5, do you have the feeling, we most of the fan have it, that there is hidden group or cartel being described by Mike Ashley as dark forces, have high hands and higher position in UK and maybe extend to UEFA, not just on the Premier League level? Because I don't believe Premier League only, they have no more, regulator will not gonna do it. I believe they have higher people in the government, especially now when it seems most of us, we can see the corruption. It's obvious, reach to extreme level. We see BSG, UEFA, Alexander, Big Six, etc., and nothing serious happened to stop this corruption. How we can fight such a corruption and cartel? How we can fight more? We did everything possible. It's everybody can't do something more now. What you advise them to do?
The question is quite easy demonstrated as what the government aren't doing, because the government, when faced with football being brought to its knees, said we'll change the laws if we've got to. And Boris Johnson stood on his soapbox and he made a statement and said there's a cartel in operation. He was compelled as Prime Minister of this country to then crush that cartel. The very least he had to do, in the duty of the British people, was to investigate the cartel. But what he's doing now,
he's obligated, Keith, to do that.
He's obligated to do it. And what he's doing now, he's sitting watching a cartel operation delay the investment of PIF in a British company. And so that's what the government are doing. That's a fact. Nobody can deny that. I'll go on oath and say that, because he kind of put an argument up to say that he's getting involved and he is investigating that cartel, because we know no government official has investigated. So for me, what could be done different? British government need to change. They need to take responsibility and put their own house in order, so that when they do deals with companies and allies like Saudi Arabia, that they can look them in the eye and say that their company are acting legitimately. And at the moment, when our Prime Minister uses the words, it's like a cartel operation, he has a liability and he has a duty to go and look after British business. And he also...
Keith, another thing, Keith, sorry to interrupt, another thing that needs explaining, and it's dumbfounded me, was how quick the government would to react about the proposed ESL. They reacted straight away. But with this, it's like, oh no, we'll pass it from here, we'll pass it from there. It's a Premier League problem. So was it not a Premier League problem when they tried to break away to form a European Super League? But they got straight in and we'll block this, we'll block that, we'll block that. There's, it's quite clear that they're involved.
When English football was threatened, they acted. The government acted. When Newcastle United's investment was threatened, they did nothing. Now, the Premier League, when I threatened to take them to court, They sent me a 9-page letter. They never once in that letter, Al-Waleed, said that the competition points I raised were wrong. They never said that at all. They tried to answer one, and the QC said to me, if that's the best they can do, son, you're going to win a court case. Because the answer they gave was poor. It was 1 out of 10 at best. It was the terrible answer to a really critical point. So they never answered any of the problems. All they did was they said, 1, you haven't got enough money. 2, you can't show enough loss. And 3, we won't rush this through for you. And you've got to go behind the club. Now, they say football is about fans in England. I'm a fan. They know I've spent money to bring this action against them, but they're not bothered about fans. They're not bothered about the smaller clubs in English football, in the low leagues. They're not bothered about the 14 clubs who aren't in the big 6. All they're bothered about is feathering their own nest and making sure that those people stay with them. They're frightened they leave them. For me, I'd give them a wave off. I'd have waved them all off and said, see you later. English football will be better without you.
Keith, there's no wrong with wanting better for yourself, because that's what we're wanting.
Yeah.
But the big 6, the way they've done it is they're doing it illegally. So there is something, and that's where it becomes something wrong. There's nothing wrong with saying we want to protect our position. But if you're doing it illegally, then this is the thing that's frustrating everyone. Get it in court. Get it in court as quick as possible. Why can't they fast track it?
We went to QCs to fast track it in October last year. We're now in October. We're now in August. So we're a couple of months, 2 months' time. It's a year since the fans of our football club said, what you're doing is illegal. Let's go to court. Let's have this out in the courtroom and find out what you're up to. But I'll tell you what, Al-Waleed, the reason for my negativity is it should be classed as realism. A year after I brought an action to them, it still exists. It's never seen a courtroom. So that's why I feel anxious, and that's why I feel disappointed, because no matter how much you try, the Premier League are just batting this away. They're just knocking it into long grass. What was your next question, Al-Waleed?
Next question
3-1 on Sunday, if you're asking the score. 3-1 Newcastle.
Actually, it's answer and the question at the same time, and I save it for the last thing. It's before we're going to, I will try to take some fans' question. We receive a lot that it's over. It's over. The takeover is over. So I'm asking you guys, is it over? Because the answer is, for me, if I answer this, I will say, if it's over, we will hear something. As long as we didn't hear anything, so it's not over.
It's my fear. It's my fear that we will hear something shortly along those lines. That's my fear. My fear is that we get notification in the next few short weeks saying that we've tried but we can't do it, and my fear is that'll come from the buyers. As far as the club are concerned, I believe the club do want to sell. There's some changes being announced where the owner of the club, Mike Ashley, is probably going to step down in his main role, and that he's got his son-in-law possibly coming into the position. But I fear, my genuine fear, is Newcastle might be talking to other people, because if their determination is to sell the club and they can't make any sense or get any progress through the courts or through the EPL ODT system, they might just give it up as a bad job and say, well, we'll just take that offer. They might take a lesser offer and then sue the Premier League with an action whenever it runs for the shortfall. I mean, I know of an organisation that tried to buy Newcastle, and their bid was 40 million less than the consortium's bid. And that came after the
Keith, I said earlier, it's about fear of loss and hope to gain.
Yeah.
And just because you're not paranoid doesn't mean people aren't out to get you. And I mean that not to you, I mean that to the club and to the buyers and everything else.
Yeah.
But let's not kid ourselves. Mike Ashley wants to sell this club.
Yes.
And he'll take the money whichever way he can get it. And he's might as well as admitted that. And if the money comes from country X, country Y, country Z, he doesn't care as long as he gets his bit. And if he's got a feeling, something you've just said there, if he's got a feeling that this can't run, well, it can't run until it gets to court. That's the thing. You've got to get the thing in court first. Yeah, and then you've got to think, okay, let's hope to gain that we'll win the case, which you're 100% certain and I'm 100% certain on a cat case, we would win it.
I don't think it'll run.
But,
I honestly, I should
but
say
that's the same. We've got to get it to run. You've got to get it run first.
Once you get to the court, they give the date. They say you're going to the court that date. I don't think it'll go much past disclosure. I think when the disclosure documents arrive and they say, well, one of the disclosure, because if I was running that case, I'd say, right, I want to see every letter sent to Premier League from Tottenham, Liverpool, and Man United that mentions the word Newcastle in it, and I'll get them specific letters, and I think you'll find them you're condemning this takeover. And the other thing is, when you investigate these companies, it's not going to be hard to put a question in to get documents and evidence about the ESL formation. It didn't happen overnight. The ESL, European Super League, didn't just get created. It was colluded. It had to. So on
a positive note, Keith, on a positive thinking, if we get to September and the cat case, let's say they have to go ahead, what I would like to open a little stall just outside Premier League headquarters and sell bicycle clips, because they'll need them, because they'll shit themselves on it, and they'll need it to stop it falling out their trousers. Sorry for the language, وليد, but the bicycle clips will be in short supply in the area. But again, that doesn't mean the takeover will happen. That doesn't mean that. It just means it's one step closer to what we all want to happen. But wanting something to happen and making it happen and it actually happening are three different things. But you can't get to the end without the beginning and the middle. So this is where the frustration is. We need to get it started. And once we get it started...
I think my frustration, وليد, is that last October, I thought, well, I'll get this cat case going and I'll find out exactly what they've been up to. I wrote to Richard Masters in August last year. It was a year and 3 days ago. I wrote him a letter and I said, you're running a cartel, and that's the 6 clubs involved. And they're the very 6 clubs that formed the ESL months and months later. Now, I said to him, what you're doing against Newcastle's takeover is illegal. And all I wanted to do was run the challenge. So when the documents came out, because you're allowed to say documents, you could see that you were right or you were wrong. If I was wrong, I apologize, you win, and we go over and just accept that it can't be. But I'm of the belief that if the case ran in the cat, it was all about separation, about the separation between PIF as a company and the Saudi state. I was confident that Newcastle had a legal team with Shahid Fatima in it.
Shahid, definitely, yeah.
That would be able to prove that separation. So I was very comfortable to hear the separation argument and to hear the cat case. The reason that I get frustrated is my government tolerate a cartel. Their words, not mine. That's their words. They made that word up. And they've continued to let it harbour. It's hampering. It's harbouring a cartel because it's feeding the cartel. Every week the cartel get more and more money, more and more sponsorship, but it goes unchallenged. And my fear, وليد, is will this cartel ever get taken to court? That's my fear. Will it ever see a problem?
Keith, you know, I've lived out the country for a while, and I know that you're speaking to some of the best legal people in the country. But you know, if you're getting, like, not you personally, let's say I was involved or accused of a murder, and it got to court, and I kept getting it thrown out and thrown out. It doesn't mean I'm not guilty of that murder, just like the PL aren't guilty of the corruption, the collusion. But eventually, there will be enough, I don't know how to explain it, there'll be enough push behind it to make sure that gets in the court. Now, can we not, as fans, do something to highlight it more? Because I know, and I'm not advocating and I'm not condoning like protests or this, that, and the other, because it's tried and tested. You can't get Newcastle fans to agree on anything. This fan base is as fragmented as it's ever been. You know, you've got one person saying that, oh, you can't tell me to do that. You've got another person saying that, he's wrong, he's wrong. But the whole idea is, if you're guilty of something, like, let's say I was guilty of murder, there would be a wave of it. Now,
there's a difference.
We've seen it highlighted. Man United fans protest, they rush into the ground and they get lauded as heroes. It's the right thing to do. Newcastle fans try to do things peacefully and they get laughed at. Like, get back in your box, get back in your place. But this is, again, going back to what you're talking about. We're all equal members of the Premier League. Why aren't we getting the same treatment?
Yeah.
Where is the help?
if you created a murder and the case was delayed, then eventually that case will never go away. And this is
Exactly.
Let's get this point.
Because I've committed a crime. It's clear. Same as the Premier League.
Let's get this out. If you commit a murder, somebody's died, and that will be tried until it's found guilty, however long it takes. There's a big difference here, and you can't use that argument for this because
there was an example, probably a bad one.
We couldn't use that argument here because most things have to be heard. But if there's a cartelling operation and Mike Ashley sells his club for 220 million and there's an out-of-court settlement made for the difference with the Premier League, the cartel might never get to court.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is we've got to be realistic in this. And for me, I only want a PIF takeover. That's all I came into this for. And for me, it isn't going into courtrooms quick enough. That's what I wanted to put over to the people from Saudi to say that I think you and us are badly let down by British government, and I think the Premier League and a lot of the media people. I think a lot of the people that are involved in showing football, whether it's shown in MENA regions or whether it's shown in UK or Europe. If you look at all the people that have the TV rights, they seem to be controlling the game. And then at club level, you've got 6 teams who've played their hand and said, listen, we want an exclusive club for the rich kids. And you're not getting invited to the table. Now, in any marketplace, the Institute of Directors in Britain did an article a while ago to say a cartel is in operation when you think of getting advantages over your competitors. Not do it, when you think about it. So I'm pretty certain from advice I've been given that it will be quite easily to show these people that there's cartel operation going on. وليد.
I really like the statement you said, Keith, that you really want to see if we couldn't, by all this evidence, can't make the Premier League go to the court, they will never be.
Yes.
Really. I would like really
Al-Walid, if it doesn't happen, I'd like to know why. I would like to know why. That I think that's
exactly. At least we want to know.
We want to know. Stopping it and
we want we want the court what they will say. We want to, and even if it's stop the deal,
exactly, justify
it. We want the cat case run until we want to see how the court will answer all this evidence, how they can protect the Premier League after all this. You cover all the question. If you allow me to take some of important question of the live question.
Yes.
Cool. I found a lot of a question, but I will take the thing we didn't cover. Some of the fans, like for example, before I put the question, they asking about other ways to complete the deal. Like for example, this could the deal be done in stages, consortium by 49%.
Yeah, I get asked that all the time, Al-Walid, and one of the obvious routes is why don't the Premier League, why don't Mike Ashley do something creative that fits in with the Premier League structure? So why, for example, doesn't he give 1% to the Rubens and 1% to Amanda tomorrow, make them directors? I was told that he offered that. I was told that he offered that at the start. He offered them a very small percentage to get them involved. But I was told that the buyers wanted the full deal, which is obvious. If you're buying a football club, you just want to get it done and get it dealt with. Whether that appetite has changed now, I'm not sure. Other people ask me why the Rubens, who were reputed to be worth 140% as much more than Abramovich, they're saying that they proposed 28 billion wealth. That makes them a massive organization in any strength. Why do they not buy it? And the answer we get is that the Reuben family don't want to own a football club themselves. You've got Jamie Reuben, who's got a great reputation in football, and he'd be dead keen. But the actual the fathers, brothers, that they don't want to own the right. I think what they want is 10% of a PIF control company, which is PIF and Rubens and PCP is a great proposition for PCP and the Rubens to have 10% alongside a PIF is a huge, for me, if they bought in at 320 million now, I think it will be 3 billion in 10 years. And when you get investment that's tenfold in 3 years, phenomenal. The way they'll do that is with investment and growth. But that's the kind of values you're hearing on football clubs like Man United, Liverpool's, Man City's. They're talking to be in the region. I mean, Tottenham, we're valuing theirs in that area. All 3.5 billion. So you can see why.
Keith, look at that thing on the screen there. PIF 70%, PCB 10, Rubens 20. With this set up, no directors test. Is that fact?
I don't know. Is the answer?
Neither do I, but also it's talking about the price. PIF have to take a step back and say, well, we'll have to accept less. Why should they? I mean, they've got more funds than most people on the planet.
What Dave King's put there is a good scenario, because I've seen other ones. See, I've seen things that contradict that. I've seen things where people have said, if there was 49% of PIF to start with, and there could be a side agreement where they take a bigger percentage, in 2 years' time. But so I would love that, وليد. If tomorrow,
I mean, there is a plan B for this kind of.
Yes, if there was a plan B, that involved PIF getting the members of the consortium at the table with Newcastle United, I'd be the happiest man on the planet. I'd go on holiday for a week and celebrate.
Of course. Did the lawyers suggest such a thing?
I don't think. I'm going to make a statement here that I haven't asked. I'm going to make a statement from my sense of dealing with them. Is I don't think that's a lawyer's decision. I don't think a lawyer in a competition action or an arbitration ever tells a club or ever tells his client is the seller, and I don't think he goes to the seller and tells them how they're going to skin it. I think what he does, he gets a competition action or he gets an arbitration action. He says, this is how I'll try and win you this case. I don't think it's a lawyer's call. I think if that was going to be done, it would be probably done between probably the club and then PCP. I think they would get together and say, is there another way we can do this deal that will get through the realms, and then go from there. And I think they would then in turn have to get Rubens and PIF to the table and see whether they agree. My understanding, again, that I've been led to believe that all along, this was PIF wanted an 80% stake, and I can understand why. But
in your opinion, what is the best plan B you can think of?
The best plan B, it's the only plan. I think that Newcastle United and PCP should have an emergency meeting and say we want to meet up with all the consortium to find a way of beating the Premier League and beating this cartel.
Stewart, are you?
Well, you've got to listen to what Keith's saying. He's got his finger on the pulse. And some of the best, I said earlier, some of the best legal brains in Britain, if not Europe, and the world, if we're bringing Shahid Fatima are on the case. So I think sometimes you pay people a lot of money to do a job, as the legal people are being paid to do. And I think sometimes the people paying them have to listen to the advice that they give back. And if there is a way of restructuring it, and there is a way of getting it through, then sometimes, you've got to take the ego out of it. Yes, we wanted this, we wanted that. Well, we all in life want different things. The problem that I anticipate with that is PIF have every reason to believe they should get what they want. And I just want to reiterate, this isn't their biggest pressing matter, it's ours. It's our biggest pressing matter.
I think it's us who's failing. I think it's a good point, Stewart. I want to add to that. I don't think PIF's failed in any sense. PIF's been
the money's there. They said they would do it. So
they've been badly dealt with by English football and by British
let down by the government.
Government being let down, and that's why the Newcastle fans, to a man, want to stand shoulder to shoulder with PIF. We've all said we've pinned our colours to the mast. We want your takeover. But I think that the Premier League at the minute, if it was a tennis match, I think they've got serve, and I think they've got an advantage point, because what they're doing is they work the tactic of, we can't let anybody hear this evidence, so we'll just delay. And nobody.
Keith, were you at the game when we were getting beat 4-0 of Arsenal?
Yeah.
There's your advantage point.
Yeah. No,
So,
I get that.
we can do it.
We never won the game, but we pulled it back to 4-4. But what my point is
felt like a win, though. That's the restructure. It feels like a win.
Yeah, but there's a winner and a loser in this. We either get to take over or we don't. And what I think you've got to do is, I think you've got, when things are going like they're going now, and it's a year almost since I started telling, which it's more than a year since I told Richard Masters there was a cartel stopping our takeover. It's 10 months since I challenged them legally, and we're no further forward today. So I've always learned in life, if ever you're going to do anything and you're not making success, and with the practice methods you're using, there's one thing you've got to do. You've got to change. You have to change. And I think that buyers and sellers need to get extremely close together now and fight the people who stop it.
This is the last question I will take from the question will not finish. It's endless, but this one is it's been around. So why did the Newcastle agree with Premier League for arbitration delay? I'm not sure if they have they agree or not, or they just forced to it.
It's a good question from Dave King, and I'll try and answer it the best I can. I can't answer that clinically with the exact reason. All I know is, in the discussions I had, was that I asked the question, are Newcastle United pleased? Did they deliberately delay the arbitration? Because when we found out it was delayed, I hoped it was to let the cat case run. I hoped they were squeezing the arbitration case, just saying, right, pause that now, the cat case is coming through, because the cat case is the one that will get the disclosure. But I learned, to my disappointment, that Newcastle United didn't want to delay the arbitration, but they had to in the end, because they couldn't get the information they needed to win it. The information they had asked of the Premier League wasn't forthcoming. And then the part that I still don't understand fully is they did a joint statement with the Premier League to say that they are delayed until early next year. What I do know now is that statement was done without conjunction with the buyers, and the buyers rightly be disappointed that you know, that we're delaying for that length of time and they're not involved and there's no immediate prospect of things happening. And coming back to it all is, you need this case in court. I said it to the club in October last year. If you don't get a competition action running, you'll not beat them, because you'll never find out what they've been up to. I thought when the ESL ran, it was like, wow, it was like crystal ball time. We've been talked about this has been going on, and how smelly it is and how much it stinks. And when that came out, I thought to myself, everybody can see what's going on now. Everybody. A blind man can see what's happening, because it's there for everybody to know. If you think of some of the terms of the ESL, it was, we'll have more money than you, we'll have more sponsorship than you, you won't be allowed to join, you have to win your way through, we can't get relegated.
Yeah.
Who's we? Who decided? You know, it's like going out for a meal and saying, oh, Wahid, you sit on the floor and I'll sit on this chair, and you, Stewart, you eat through a mesh. You put a mesh over your face.
And this is what you're eating.
You eat what's scrapped, and you'll eat that, and I'll have the banquet. And you'll only come to this table when I invite you. And this is my table, my room.
Yeah. And we've got to say, oh, yes, that sounds good, Keith. Well done.
That is anti-competitive, and that isn't allowed in any marketplace, not just in England or the UK, but also throughout the EU. And until these people are heard in a court, you won't change it. And if you said to me today, how do you feel? I reckon a couple of years' time, we'll look back and say, we didn't get what we should have had. It still hasn't gone to court. And they've never, ever been brought to task. And Boris Johnson's now, he's not Prime Minister anymore, but if he said it was a cartel, he was maybe wrong. That's what I feel.
I'm sorry, but this one is really gets me interested.
Okay, okay.
Are the only delays to the CAT by Premier League based on similarity of the two cases?
It's a good point, and that Janos comes on the show on the Fab Four on a Friday night. He's a regular on Steve's shows on NUFC Matters. It's a good point. Everybody assumes that's the case. Everybody assumes what they read in the papers because it's been in the press that they say that it's just because the cases are similar that they're not running. I've heard, and again, I've heard from a legal source that it might include a clause from the Premier League that states if ever you've got a dispute as a member of the Premier League, right, when you get membership, one of the rules might be that if ever you've got a dispute, you've got to run it through a CAT, and that's the only way you can do it, rather than take a competition action. So there might be a case of where the Premier League lobby a court to say that contradicts the rules they signed. Personally, if you joined the Premier League and said, well, I'll use a CAT for every dispute I've had, and then your granny gets murdered, I don't suppose you're going to take that case to a CAT. I'm sure you'll take that to a British court for murder. So I don't think you can just stick to that. And I don't think any ODT or any Premier League organisation can prevent an anti-competition case running when the Prime Minister suggests there's a cartelling operation. So I think
they can delay it.
I think it'll get thrown out. My problem at the minute, I don't want to be negative. I'm a mega positive person. There's nothing I'd like to see in my lifetime more than this deal go through. I think I'd rather have it than a lottery ticket. I just want to see this go through. But my fear is that they'll never see a courtroom.
I would like to ask like free word or something. Want to say? I want to start with Stewart to let you, Keith, to have a break.
Okay, I just want to say three things. Sorry,
you can say whatever you want, and message to the consortium, to the fans, to the Saudi fans. Three words.
Well,
for you, Stewart.
I've only got three things I want to finish off with. Sorry. First one is thank you for asking Keith and myself onto the show and giving us the opportunity to discuss things, because it's allowed a lot more people and people in the MENA region, specifically Saudi Arabia, to meet Keith and feel his passion, and hear his passion, and I know people from PIF watch your shows, and I hope that they feel the passion of the fan base that we've got and the potential that we've got, and they do stick with us, and they do have the same loyalty that we've had. I mean, we've had nothing to cheer about for Newcastle for 40 odd years, all but 3 or 4 seasons, and we're still renowned as the best fans in the country, and we need to start showing that more often. So that was the second thing. Hopefully PIF are watching and agree, and if they were having second thoughts, think, what, this is worth sticking with, and we're not going to get beat. We want to replicate the trust and the loyalty that this fan base has shown us, and we'll go and give it to them, and we'll, again, as an investment. That's me being emotional. And the last thing I want to do, and I know I've said this to Keith personally, we speak to each other quite often, but I've never had the opportunity to have a podcast with him, and I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart for all the work he's done, all the effort, all the time, everything he's done to try and make this happen. And I know he's taken so much grief for it, so much abuse for it, and he's stayed steadfast. And there's so many more behind him that are against him. And, those who are jealous will always be jealous. And people talk about it. People talk the talk. This guy's walked the walk. He's put his money where his mouth is, and he's tried to make something happen. And I'd rather try and fail than just talk about it and not do nothing. And, and fair play to you, Keith. And I want to say that seriously. fair play. I don't speak on behalf of the fans, but I'm sure there's many that agree with what I've just said. So thank you, and you please keep your chin up, mate, and I'll keep both my chins up, and we'll keep the fight going. And you never know, the underdog does win. And I know it's difficult, and I know it's us against the other 19 clubs and against this, that, and the other. But it's not miracles. This isn't a miracle. This is just needs to be legal, not a miracle. So thanks again, Keith, and thanks for coming on with وليد as well. I know he appreciates it.
Thank you so, from the bottom of my heart. Thanks a lot. It's been a horrible journey. This I got asked the other day, if you lived your life again, would you have done it? And I said, yeah, I would, because the club means that much to us, and that's the experience I've had. That I always would have gone and done this journey because I didn't know what the journey entailed. Having done the journey, if I lived my life again, would I do it again? No, I'd never go down this route again, because it's been vicious. I've had 3 death threats. One of them was, was if you're that way inclined, was scary, and it was, the police couldn't do anything, and it was done efficiently, and it was the kind of thing that would raise fear with you. But I've had a great life. I've had an absolutely brilliant life, me, and I'd rather bow to this earth having tried to be who I am and stand for what I am, than walk away and bottle it because somebody tells you what you're doing can't be done. All the opposition I've had and all the rubbish I've had on social media has come from anti-Saudi people, which is about 1%. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny few. But 99% of people have absolutely backed us to the hilt. So I've had a great journey along this road, and meeting people like وليد. I was doing a television thing with Steve Wraith on the quayside, and we met 2 Saudis that were over. One was a coach, and they were over there. And they come down the quayside, and they got interviewed on GB News, and it was brilliant, and you could just feel it. So when I leave this earth, if I could leave it just making a difference. And my late dad said to us, he says, whenever you go into a room, son, always make sure when you leave that room, it's a better place if you haven't been in it. And he used to always preach on us to treat people as you want them to treat you. And I do, chase trolls away, and I do, discount idiots quite quickly, because life's short. Life's short. I'm not a young person anymore, and so I want to live and breathe every minute of every day I can, and I want to enjoy myself. So I've got no time whatsoever for idiots. And to be polite, I haven't got any time for people that don't want this takeover. My life is focused and fixed on people who want the same as me. And if I've got so many hours a day that I can allocate to this, so I can either allocate it to people who want the takeover and spend time with them, or I can spend hours they haven't got debating with people who don't want the same as me. So I just said, look, when I start this, it's my own money, and I'm just going to spend time with people who want the same as me. And if you don't want a PIF takeover, then you're not like me. And I'm sorry, you'll get yourself away and I'll do my thing. So I want to say thanks to you, Stewart. It's the way you've dealt with us over the few months of knowing you that's made this the only show I've come on other than Steve Wraith's NUFC Matters. I went on there because of the credibility of them people and the knowledge they have from the buying side, and I knew that because I was in contact with the seller in a big way, that it was a perfect match, and that's why I spent time with that group of people. And I've got no regrets that I made that choice. I've had some stick of some of the clowns for doing it, but I'm proud of the choice I made. I then met people like وليد, and met other people like Holly and who've I don't know, found a way past my defenses. You know what I mean? So when I say وليد, and I've spoke to وليد off record, I speak to وليد via text or via email, because I respect the lad, and I just think if everybody in Saudi Arabia is like you, fella, wow, I can't wait to start working with you, because I get like a good feeling about you, and I just get a sincerity that comes through وليد, that you're like my favorite Saudi, but I'm sure there's plenty more people in your homeland that would be great to work with, and that's why I want to do it, and that's why I opened up NCSL KSA because I wanted to reach out to the people from your country. And you know, I just think there's so much good can be done here. And I think that as a city and as a place, I think Newcastle have seen the benefit of the Reuben brothers, that they've started investing in our city. I think Amanda and Maydad have really gone out the way to understand Newcastle people, and it just feels good if they started running my club. I've got so much faith in them. But I think the finishing touch is what is the biggest and best company on the planet, to get PIF invest in our company and let us be part of your vision, that where you become a country that's not, you know, only funded by oil. You now get involved in Formula One. You now stage some of the best boxing fights that, you know, that I follow, and I look and think, well, why can my football team not have that investment? So it's the only deal in town for me. And thanks, Waleed, for getting us on the show. Thank you, Stewart, for persuading us to come on. I feel comfortable. I'm always a little bit wary of what I'm letting myself in for, but now when I'm not here, I have a good rapport. If the people in Saudi Arabia, more than my homeland, see benefit in repeating this, I'll consider doing something again. But there's three messages I've got, and the first one's to the seller, to Newcastle United. I say to them, good people at that club, is go and get in touch with the buy-in group, get in touch with all of them, call a meeting together and say, these people are playing dirty, how do we beat them? Let's make a new plan and let's go and win it. And I beg the club to do that as a matter of urgency. I say to the fans in Newcastle, who I'm just like you, I'm just one of them, and you know, I love you, I love the fans, I love everything about this club. I just say, lobby government, just lobby government, and do it as politely and as decently as you can. Be professional, but just ask a question. Why am I voting for you? Why am I voting for you at Newcastle? Because you're doing nothing for my city and my football club. What you've allowed the Premier League to do, to even the royalty of the people in Saudi Arabia, is embarrassing. I'm disappointed. I'm embarrassed to be English at the way that you have allowed this tin pot organisation called the Premier League to deal with a state that's a major ally of Great Britain. And the third thing I'll say to PIF, I'll say, please don't give up on us.
Yeah.
Just trust me and trust the people of my country that Newcastle is a special place. It's different, and dare I say it's better than any other part of the United Kingdom. It's a phenomenal place, and you have to be there to appreciate it. But PIF, I'll say to you tonight, we will be worth waiting for. Please don't leave us. Please don't build our hopes up and walk out on us. Send us a message. Get in touch with Newcastle tomorrow. Get in touch with Justin Barnes tomorrow and say, I know that Justin Barnes and PIF talk on a regular basis. I'm saying to you now is, I know you don't talk about the football club. Please bring that to the top of the list and make your ally with Newcastle get this takeover across the line, because it will be worth getting when it happens. Thank you, everybody that's tuned in tonight. Thanks to the people of Saudi Arabia. I just hope one day we all part of one thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Can't thank you enough. I can't even end. I can't even say something to. I think this is the best way to end it. Hope everything.
Well,
you
two
say
things, Halloween. Keith said before he dies, he wants to say certain things. I want to see two things before Keith dies, and that's Newcastle win a trophy, and then him give me and Mitch the £100 back we've spent on these tops. Because of him, we wouldn't have bought them. So next time we're over, mate, I'll get it off you. That's it. No, it is. It costs now to smile. It costs a hell of a lot of money to buy a football club, and whether it happens or not, and I've said this before, we've watched so many atrocious teams and players over the years at Newcastle. This is a dream, but it's a dream that's worth chasing. It's worth persevering with, and it's within our grasp, and it keeps getting taken out from where we're from, these colours don't run. We say that all the time. We're a backs to the wall region, and until PIF or Amanda Stavely tell us any different, I want to continue fighting, and I hope everyone else does as well.
I'll keep fighting.
Thank you again, وليد. I know you will, mate. I know you will, mate.
Keep fighting, and thanks to all these people who's been on tonight, because some of the comments are just amazing, and I never ever take them for granted. I'm always surprised, because when I did this وليد, I didn't want to be the front man. I was the person that stood back, and I said, my name's not going on anything. I just wrote the letters and I got the QC. And then what happened is there was two of us, and then one went back to work, and there was just me, and I just sat there and thought, what have I done? And I remember talking to a guy, a competition lawyer, and he said, this is either the cleverest or the worst, stupidest thing you've ever done in your life. And a lot of days I think it's the stupidest when I've got idiots pestering us and question what I'm doing. But I just feel as though I always thought it was going to be the best thing I ever did, وليد. I always thought it was going to be. But at the minute, my mindset is the Premier League are winning in the delay game.
That's the passion. That's the emotion. That's the roller coaster. We'll have great days. We'll have bad days. And again, I implore the people at PIF not to watch us as a spreadsheet, but actually have some of that passion and belief. And together we can create, and we will create amazing things.
I really appreciate both of you. You speak from the heart. You're honest. You cover all the question. Most the Saudi, especially fans, are asking me, and you cover it all with honesty. It's very clear to us. All the questions been answered, and we really. I know I'm still didn't pass maybe half the things or difficult times you pass you guys, but the good thing that for me in my life aspect, if I do the maximum of anything I want, even if I didn't get it, but deeply I did what I can.
You did your best, and that's all you can do.
I believe especially Keith Patterson did everything he can. And this is, we all will, nobody will forget this, and always will be appreciated. And the main topic of the show tonight, it's not over yet.
No, it's not.
Thank you, Keith Patterson. Thank you, Stewart Penman.
Thank you, وليد. Thanks. Cheers. Good night.
مع السلامة.
كان معنا كيث باترسون، ستيوارت بينمان، تحدثوا معنا عن جميع ما الأسئلة التي وصلتني خصوصا على الخاص في تويتر. كنا نحاول أن نجاوب جميع الأسئلة الحقيقية التي يسألها الجماهير بخصوص ماذا حدث في الصفقة، هل انتهت. طبعا الكلام كثير علشان نترجمه، لكن راح نترجم أهم المقاطع إن شاء الله في حسابنا في تويتر. أهم شيء في الموضوع أن الصفقة لم تنتهي بعد. شكرا لكم وتصبحون على خير. Thank you, Keith Patterson.
Thank you. And thanks everybody in Saudi Arabia. Much appreciated. Thank you.
كيث باترسون مشجع نيوكاسل وخضرم لمع اسمه أثناء ظهور بداية التلاعب من قبل مسؤولي الدوري الإنجليزي في صفقة الاستحواذ العام الماضي وتعمدهم المماطلة فيها. قرر كيث مع بعض الأصدقاء القيام بشيء كبير يساعد على إتمام صفقة الاستحواذ بنجاح، وعمل على جمع الأخطاء القانونية التي قام بها البريمير ليج، وعين محامين مختصين في هذه القضايا من ماله الخاص. ورفعت القضية رسميا في أكتوبر 2020، وتم جمع العديد من الأدلة التي تدين الدوري الإنجليزي وتثبت المماطلة المتعمدة واختلاف المعاملة مع الأندية الست الكبرى في جميع النواحي. وبعد تطور الأحداث قرر مايك أشلي ومحامي نادي نيوكاسل يونايتد تبني القضية التي رفعها كيث باترسون ومجموعة NCSL 1892 في أبريل الماضي. وما زالت القضية جارية، وما زال استمرار الدوري الإنجليزي في محاولة التأجيل والمماطلة مستمرة من قبل الدوري الإنجليزي. قام كيث أيضا وأصدقائه بفتح حساب NCSL 1892 في تويتر للتواصل مع الجماهير، ومؤخرا حساب NCSL 1892 KSA العربي للتواصل مع السعوديين بشكل خاص. كيث باترسون ضيفنا الليلة في نيوكاسل مع وليد وصديق البرنامج ستيوارت بينمان. لمتابعة جديد كيث باترسون وستيوارت بينمان تابعوا قناة شؤون نيوكاسلية مع الإعلامي ستيف ريث.